This really seems to be political mudslinging that's being done in the garb of data wars. This is the India development debate. I'm Supriya Shrinate, and yes, I'm referring to the 108 versus the 131. Data credibility has come to numbers because 131 chartered accountants published a letter today alleging that the motivation of the signatories of the letter written by social scientists and economists last week had raised concerns over public data as questionable. The letter by the CAs highlights that the revision of data is a healthy practice and follows global standards. The letter asks social scientists if their intention is to scare foreign investors away. It is the image of our nation institutions getting sullied by this debate. Is the timing of both the letters questionable? Is there nothing but politics at stake as far as this big data debate is concerned? I've got four very eminent people joining me on this discussion. R. Nagaraj is Professor IGIDR, and he was a part of the 108 economists and the letter they signed raising questions on the data credibility. I've got Vikas Khemani, founder Carnival and Capital Advisors LLP. He's one of the signatories of the 131 CAs. Maithili Busturmat, our consulting editor, joins us right here, and so does Swaminathan Iyer, our consulting editor at TT Now. So thank you very, very much for being with us. Is Swami ready, and can I go to him? Okay. Swami, thank you very much for joining us. 131 CAs are out to debunk allegations by 108 economists of statistical mismanagement and suppression of economic data. Okay, we seem to have lost Swami's feed, but we'll go across to Maithili in the meantime. And Maithili, exactly the same question to you. A war of 131 CAs versus 108 economists. The CAs say this is politically motivated. My question is really political in nature. Is this debate reducing the credibility of our system, and is it simply now a political debate?
Well, it does seem in danger of that, and that is really the great worry, because these are institutions that we've built up over the years with a great deal of effort, and so far nobody has questioned the credibility of the CSO, the NSSO, etc. We have a remarkable band of, amazingly professional and competent statisticians. In fact, the Indian statistical systems have been adopted in many countries in the developing world. So I think it's a little unfortunate at this particular juncture we've had this kind of, 108 economists versus 131 CAs. Surprisingly, the chartered accountants, the statisticians, simply nowhere in the picture. They are the ones who should be really debating this. But they're keeping quiet, and you have everybody else and his uncle entering the debate. And to be honest, the fact is that revisions of statistical data like GDP are par for the course. In fact, an Economist, the London Economist magazine, in an issue of 2016 says that the British GDP of 1959 has been revised 18 times by 2012. So revisions are par for the course. What is important is, are these revisions being done at the behest of the government in power? That is what we need to be very sure when we make these allegations. Fortunately or unfortunately, we have no proof either on this position taken by the economists, nor the position taken by the other side. So this is what is damaging in the process, and I think it's very bad for the credibility of our institutions.
No, it is bad, and I think what is distressing for me at least is not just the credibility of the data under question, but the kind of language that is now being used. I'm sure our economists and especially our CAs can use better language, but let me take this across to Vikas Khemani before I get Swaminathan Iyer back on the line with us. And Vikas, 108 economists and social scientists, has alleged that there is political interference in the publication of data. They opine that in past, organizations like the CSO and NSSO were enjoying high credibility but are now under cloud. I am just going to quote the data that's not coming to fore now. Farmer suicide, labor data, crime data. Why are these data points not being released? This data used to be released regularly. Is that not of a concern anymore, that this data is no longer simply available? What explains the fact that the government is holding back data when this is the data that perhaps policy making should be done on? And doesn't that concern you?
I think first of all, there are few data which are in questions. So I think first of all, GDP, as my previous speaker also said, that revision in GDP is par for course. It has been done globally. It has been done in India many times over. So I don't know why so much of fuss is being made about it. I think as far as the national data is concerned,
no, Vikas.
I think it's such a small sample. Yeah.
Vikas, I'll come to GDP. You answer the question that I've asked you. The holding back of data is the problem, and that is the issue these economists have raised. Answer the question I'm asking you. I'll come to GDP next when I'm discussing GDP.
No, so I think, definitely, there's no question. If suppose, let's say, an employment data, I mean, I don't know, I'm not privy to the crime data and all those things what you're talking about, but some of the questions raised by NSSO data, I mean, if let us say it's a very small sample survey of 140,000 people over such a large population to determine what is the employment rate or unemployment rate in the country, I don't think that's fair. And if there is some sort of anomalies there, I think, in my opinion, it's much better to review the process rather than confusing the whole country with the data which is not really right picture. So I don't think, and this government, in my opinion, has questioned so many well laid down processes over the years to refresh the economy. So I don't see any reason why, one should only pick up few data points and say that this is not representative whole economy or work done by I think there's a whole lot of, initiatives being done by the government to question the laid down process which we have followed blindly for 40, 50, 70 years.
Fair point. Okay. No, Vikas, 1 second. I'm not going to let you go on a tirade there because we are not questioning whether this government has done reforms and it has processes. I'm questioning a simple data. I'm aghast that somebody as knowledgeable as you were saying, it's such a small sample, why bother with it? Because we bothered with it for years. We can't simply say that this data is not going to be available. Please understand, that's not how policy making is done. You may not be concerned with crime data, but I am, and many others on this panel are concerned. What is the crime rate in India? How many farmers has committed suicide? How can we not know of these data points because it conveniently
doesn't suit you? I'm not making a point that I'm not concerned with the crime. Anyways, I am only simply saying there should be right process of collecting data on whatever the important issues of the social. I mean, you cannot just say, I'm concerned about the crime, unemployment,
but that's
everything.
Not what your letter
but if you don't have a right mechanism to collect data, which we are making our policy and judging.
But that's not what your letter says. No. That's not what your letter says. I'm going to quote from your letter in just a bit. But Swaminathan Iyer, I'll come to you. Economists allege political interference. CAs have called these allegations baseless and politically motivated. I'm presuming the truth lies somewhere in between. I'm sure the data is not all suppressed and all political. I'm also sure not everything that the Economist is saying is politically biased and politically motivated. By calling it the award Vapsi gang, like the CAs have called it in their letter, I think they have taken the seriousness out of their charges. This seems to be a mere political rhetoric right now. Will you agree with me, Swami?
Yes, I would absolutely agree with you. I would say, the 108 economists are extremely eminent people, some of world renown. It includes Esther Duflo, winner of the John Bates Clark Medal, the kind of thing which is often the kind of thing that will ultimately lead to a Nobel Prize. Please understand that. Is there one single distinguished economist in the so-called chartered accountants? No. May I ask, what the hell do chartered accountants know about statistics or economics? Are they trained in it? Do they know about the samples? Do they know how to measure GDP? No, they don't. So why on earth are we getting chartered accountants trying to challenge economists? I mean, if economists were challenging chartered accountants, the chartered accountants may have something to say. But I would simply say that I regret to say it would appear that because the government can't get enough respectable economists to support its plea, instead it's getting chartered accountants. Chartered accountants are trained in tax law and in balance sheet analysis. Anybody who says that, for instance, a sample of 140,000 is a very small sample, I mean, complete ignorance. A sample of 140,000 is a very big sample. It is an excellently good sample. Many smaller samples would be statistically significant. You may not know that there are some countries where they are doing such things on samples of no more than 15, 20,000 for the entire country. So please, anybody who even says 140,000 is a small sample, you don't understand statistics. Very clearly, they don't know it. The fact is the chartered accountants are not qualified to talk on, and may I add that therefore they are not even getting into any of the technical issues. They are merely converting it to a political issue by saying, do you know the Modi government has done very well on various things? Look, I will agree that the Modi government on various things has done fairly well. Nevertheless, the fact is that what is happening is a scandal. The two members of the National Statistical Commission have to resign because of what is happening. That is a scandal. It stinks.
Right.
Now, I really don't care how well, perhaps Mr. Modi is doing 7% growth just fine. The fact that you're doing 7% growth is no excuse for not having a proper independent statistical system.
Okay. Swami, give me a minute. I will go across to Mr. Nagaraj and then come back to the panel. I think Vikas Khemani has some tough questions to answer there. Professor Nagaraj, it is a fact that National Account Statistical Series have been changed in August 1967, according to the letter that the CAs have produced. And this is right. It has been changed in January 1978, then in 88, then Feb 99, and then in 2006. And the rebasing exercise which led to the change in GDP growth was set in motion by the UPA. It was done by the previous government. It is not just about this government. It seems to suggest that you're criticizing this government alone on changing of the series. Is that what your grouse really is?
See, the change in base years they have talked about, the years they have mentioned is probably not correct. The years they have mentioned is probably not right. Yeah, I think it has been changed almost every decade since 1950, but in the last decade we hastened it somewhat. Okay, it is true that the revision process started in 2014. Okay, therefore I did not see we never saw these changes as political. We saw there are serious methodological issues, data issues, which is what we pointed out. So I think reading politics into every number is probably not right. In fact, we raised this question in 2015, and we never thought this was a political number. We were, I mean, as economists, we were mostly bothered about the methodologies followed in it, and also the new data sets they have used, which seemed problematic, which is what we raised we raised about. Okay, so I think saying everything in terms of politics, which is what the CA's statement says, I think is completely wrong. We did not see it in purely political terms that previous government did something, the present government did everything. No, we did not see that way. But in fact, I personally have criticized the GDP estimates of the previous government as well. In 2009, I had a paper questioning the services sector estimates. Yeah.
Okay.
Therefore,
okay, Professor Nagaraj.
Many of us, in fact, most of us who have
Professor
signed,
Nagaraj, I get your point. I'm sorry, I'll have to come in there. No, fair point. Professor Nagaraj, I get your point there. You have not just criticized this, but you've criticized the previous data. The grouse that I have to pick up with Vikas Khemani is, and Vikas, I'm going to tell you something very conveniently on national television and very honestly. When I tried calling 4 out of those people, 131 people in the list that has been put forward, trust me, 4 of them said that they have actually not signed that letter. So I don't know who to believe, the names that have been published or the guys who are telling us off the record, we've not signed this letter, we are not going to speak on the show. So I'm just letting you know what we've been hearing. Your letter, though, however, makes some strong, base year revision is expansion of the GDP size, not revision of the growth data. I don't think one can argue with you. I think the methodology is being questioned. If there were any, false notions, Mr. Nagaraj is trying to say they are not questioning the revision. This is done periodically. You're also peddling some kind of a wrong notion. India's macroeconomic management has always been in line with the UN norm. We track this data and so we know it. What upsets me is a line in your letter which says that the opposition and media are already playing their respective roles to the fullest in India. We are a democratic society. The opposition and the media should be playing a role to the fullest. The opposition is meant to oppose the policy of the government. What can be wrong in that?
So I completely, Professor Nagaraj made a point that in democracy, everybody has right to express their point of view. There's no denial on that, and one should that, and he's been doing beautifully forever. But tell me, when last time it happened when so many economists came together and presented the picture of, like a sort of, that it is being, put against the government as if, everything is going wrong out here in terms of, managing the institution. So I think it has never happened before. If, 10 economists wrote individually in their capacity, I could understand that. But here, I think the clear approach seems to be creating an image, creating an approach that, every institution is being undermined, data is being, manipulated on every count, and that's not what it is in our opinion. we can go on and debate on ever, but I don't think, GDP rebasing is a global exercise as per as you said, that as per the World Bank standards, as per the UN standards, and, GDP data gets revised upwards everywhere, or downward depending on, whatever the representative sector at that point in time. So I think, and same thing I think about NSSO data. I think Mr. Iyer made a point that, the sample size is the right size. But again, believing that 45 years, let us say you did a sample survey and the data comes out, let's say, I don't know what the real fact is behind that, but if data is sample outputted notes showing 45-year-old, employment rate going back 45, that's not correct. I mean, we definitely don't have the same situation what we had 45 years ago. So I don't think, in my opinion, government has all right to kind of relook at the processes which they should be looking at in terms of giving the right picture. And all government is saying that we will relook at the pictures for unemployment, for lots of other data points to present the right picture to the government, to the public at large.
The picture that's almost seems to be coming out, this evening, and it is so unfortunate because all of you are stakeholders in the Indian economy. The economists are a stakeholder and so are the CAs. The picture that is coming out is as if you are the mouthpiece for the government and they are the mouthpiece for the opposition. The truth should somewhere lie in between. My problem is not with the point that you are trying to back the government. My problem is that you're using a very political language, and I'm going to take one question to Maithili before I come back to you. And Maithili, what upsets me a little bit is that why on earth are CAs getting into the realm of politics over Pulwama? I mean, who are they to say that our armed forces are being questioned or not? Because the reality is that numbers of casualties and all that were quoted by the government, and it should be between the government of the day and the opposition to settle those scores. Who are economists and CAs to get into the politics of Pulwama and its aftermath? I have an issue with that as an economic journalist. I don't have an issue with the data debate. The data debate should be held, our data should be credible. But why on earth are they ranging into an issue that is none of their concern, that is actually beyond their understanding?
Oh, well, I couldn't agree with you more, Supriya, on that. I think both economists and chartered accountants are best advised to stay away from what they don't understand and what they don't know. So there I'm entirely with you, and I would also agree with Swami that saying chartered accountants have very little idea about how the GDP is calculated. But where I would like to disagree with Swami is when I point out to him that after the government revised the base year and we got the new estimates, he in fact wrote a piece in the Economic Times saying that the data is collected from so many diverse points that it's really almost impossible to have any fudging, and also went on to say that no elections have ever been fought on the basis of data about national statistics. I entirely agree with him on that and on the former statement that to say that data is wrong, to say that the methodology is disputable is one thing, but for people to allege that it is politicized and the government is interfering, that is something completely different, and it's very damaging to institutions that we have built up with a great deal of diligence. So I think it's important to distinguish between the two. Methodology debates can be had, but to allege that there's politicization, interference, that is a very grave charge and must be treated and must be made only when you have very clear proof, and that I don't think anybody has at the moment.
No, I don't think anybody has a proof, but if 108 economists are getting together, it is a matter of debate, and the debate should be responsible, it should be held, but not in the way it's playing out, neither between the economists nor between the CAs. But Swami, I'll come to you, and I think I just have very little time on the show, but I'll come to you. You know, the data is very crucial, and do you believe this is becoming a big issue? This is becoming a big debate between the CAs and the economists, the CAs representing the government, the economists saying they're independent, but, somewhere people believe that they are, they are representing the opposition's view. Is it becoming a bigger debate? Because Mr. Modi had promised the moon in 2014. He had promised jobs, he had promised development, and as we come closer to elections 2019, he is going to be judged on some of those parameters, and which is why the data debate has gained this momentum, has gained this importance. Otherwise, who cares about whether you're going to get 6% or 6.2% or 7 or 7.1%?
Well, all I can say is that, many times in the past, data have been inconvenient, they have still been published. It is not that data have always been convenient to the government. Out here, it appears that because the election is coming up, the data on employment are being suppressed. Now, are there various things that could be wrong with the employment data? Of course. There have been many criticisms, many discussions of all kinds of data sets, and those are technical issues. But you do not suppress it. You come out with the data and then try and explain why we need to do something. which may be tackling some of the frailties of the thing. Right now, when you have never before has there been a situation where two members of the National Statistical Commission, including the acting chairman, have to resign. They resign because, there can be a no greater slur on the quality of your statistics than that happening. If this happened in any country in the world, it would be a scam. It would be something that stinks. I think, forget as to whether or not the data are good or bad. Can you have a state of affairs where the two members of the National Statistical Commission have to resign in protest because of suppression and distortion of the data?
Okay.
That is what is truly terrible.
Okay, Swami, just hold it. Yes, and I think that needs to be debated. Why did those members have to resign? And then, of course, there was a draft report which got leaked and that said that the employment situation was terrible. We are not debating the size right now. But I have two quick last questions, and both for Mr. Nagaraj and Mr. Khemani. And Mr. Khemani, your laundry list that you write out is very political and it's full of lofty generalities. I know as CAs and in men who watch equities and markets, you guys are very specific. I know Vikas Khemani doesn't talk in generalities, and still the letter that you've signed talks about language like startups are hitting the skies, huge number of jobs created in services. Which is the data that you're tracking which is giving jobs in services? You're saying demonetization formalized the economy. Are you still supporting demonetization despite the toll it took? This seems to be, a very politically worded document. It is not a CA's document. CAs are extremely meticulous, extremely specific, if I may say a little technical. Startups hitting skies, this is not your language, is it?
First of all, I think let me clarify, a lot of comments have been made what CAs do know about economists. I think for those who don't understand, I think let them come to a lot of research houses, including ours, to Bombay, and how CAs can give you intricate details of, so just by being economist does not mean that you'll understand economy. Even CAs can have a lot more knowledge and detailed knowledge about it. So don't make random comments about the community in general. Coming to your specific point, I think, there is an allegation being made about the data point which has been released around the whole set of. I think this is basically just saying that don't look at the one specific thing and malign the whole image of the country, whole image of the progress which we have made in last 3, 4, 5 years. I think lots have been done, and I think look at the totality of the picture rather than just looking at very narrow, nuanced. We have had in this country where EVMs have been questioned. We have had in this country where lots of basic things have been questioned without having the overall perspective. The idea here is that what we're trying to say is that have the overall perspective of the growth, development, progress the country has made, the kind of reforms which this country has undertaken over the last 4 or 5 years, and don't malign and write off everything just by and putting down just this thing and saying that everything has gone back. And I don't think no government in my opinion has questioned so many laid down processes. They have questioned in this last 4 or 5 years, and I think reformed those things, including it's a very small example, but I think presenting budget from 28th February to 1st February. These are the basic things, but they have questioned a lot of things. And I think in my opinion, one should not, a GST implementation is not a small exercise.
They don't change the economic landscape of a country.
So look at the picture in totality rather than pointing out one whole thing.
No, absolutely. GST and IBC are big reforms. GST and IBC are big reforms. Nobody is denying that. But changing the budget date is not a big reform. Let's be clear about that. You're right. GST and IBC are big reforms. It shall go as a green in the report card. But changing a budget date and getting some ranking here and there is not a big reform.
But very quickly, Mr.
Nagaraj, I just have 30 seconds on the show. I have to.
Which has been followed for 70 years for no reason. Okay. This government has questioned that.
And what has it resulted in? But anyways, Mr. Nagaraj, I have a quick last word for you. 30 seconds is all I have. I can't borrow time from my next show. We believe that at a time like this, when data is being questioned and debated, and there is so much of scanning of data that's happening, is it time that India moves to an impartial committee to look at data, to look at the credibility of our data instead of this tutu meme that's happening over it? Because this is not going to be good for economy in the long term. This is not going to be good for our investment climate. This is not going to be good for the credibility of our institutions in the long term.
I can't agree more with you. because in fact I was the first one in 2015 and later in 2017 we have been writing that the entire GDP revision has to be re-examined by an independent international committee of experts. And I would say now that the employment data is also being questioned, I would say the same committee or a similar committee should look into employment committee as well. It should be an international impartial committee, just like it has happened in many countries. Like Argentina revised its inflation numbers by appointing an international committee. So this is a standard practice globally because the data tend to get politicized. So way out is to get an international expertise to resolve issues. And again, I think there can't be better pictures. You can't get better pictures of the economy as a whole other than getting GDP and unemployment numbers. I think they give you the complete comprehensive picture for the economy.
Sorry.
And they should be most respected, not sectoral data, not sectional data. So I think these are the most important statistics for economists, and I think
I'm sorry,
the status of them has to be restored.
I have completely run out of time here. I can't borrow any more time from my next show. That's another important show that's coming up. But thank you very much, Vikas Kamani, Professor Nagaraj, Swaminathan Iyer, and Maithili Basturmat for putting the spotlight to where it really belongs. A discussion, a debate are signs of a thriving democracy. We are all stakeholders in the Indian economy. But let's keep politics out of our economic debates. Let's keep politics out of our economic data. Let us attack each other. Let us square things out, but let us do that objectively, factually, and let's just keep the politics out of these debates. Thank you very much for being with us in this edition of the India Development Debate. We take a quick breather. We come back with the Times Now VMR survey. This is an exhaustive survey that talks about the mood of the nation. How many seats could the NDA be winning? What are the Congress's chances? How popular is Mr. Modi right now? Has Rahul Gandhi been able to make a dent? All of that is coming up in this exclusive 2019 opinion poll that's coming up in just a moment from now. Stay here with us.